So how are you all this evening?
We are good.
So welcome to today's class. I'm still your lecturer for this semester. I'll be taking you through clothing construction theory. So for this lesson, we will be learning something new, a new topic. So let's enjoy the lesson. So who can tell us, before we just continue with our new topic, who can tell us what we learned in our last lesson in clothing construction theory? Anybody? Yes, Emma?
We learned about different types of stitches.
Yes, that is very good.
We have temporary and permanent stitches.
Very, very good. That is very wonderful. So in this class today, I want us to introduce ourselves in another topic. In this topic, we are going to be learning about seams. So somebody, a volunteer to take us through the objectives of the lesson. Another volunteer to take us through the objectives of this lesson, please.
1. It is to define a seam. State the factors to consider when making a seam. Identify the types of seams. State the qualities of a good seam.
Very good. Thank you very much, Betty. So those are basically the objectives of this lesson. So that is what we will be learning in this lesson. We are going to know what is a seam, the factors to consider, the various types of seam, and the qualities of a good seam. So we first start with the definition of a seam. The definition of a seam. So a seam is basically a join where two or more layers of fabric, leather or other materials are held together with threads to form stitches. We use the stitches to join the fabric, two pieces of fabrics together. Like what we learned in the stitches, the permanent stitches are mostly the types of stitches that we normally use to come up with seams. So we are going to look at the various things we can consider when selecting a type of garment. So the first thing you need to consider when making a garment, when making a seam, you have to consider the type of fabric. There are types of fabrics whereby the fabric is very light, so you cannot use a fabric that is a type of seam that is a seam that is so bulky on the fabric, so it may pull the fabric. And then another thing we will look at is the style of the garment. Different styles of garments we use different types of seams. Like there are various types of garments, styles and garments that we don't necessarily need to use other types of seams. We'll get to know the seam so that we can know which style in a garment can be used with a certain type of seam. The effect desired. So somebody who can tell me what they understand with the effect desired. Somebody to just explain what they think, just a rough idea of what an effect desired is.
Okay, I can try. Okay, the effect desired is a consideration of our seam will deliver its use on a fabric or a garment that is being constructed, either like giving it the fun aspect.
Oh, thank you very much, Anthony. That is very, very good. What you would like, basically it is what you would like the garment to look. Do you want it to be decorated? Do you want it to be functional? Do you want the seam to be used to bring out what kind of an effect to you? And then the last point, these are the main 4 points. The last point we are going to look at is the position of the seam on the garment. Where are you going to put the seam? So wherever the seam is going to put, you need to understand what type of seam can be used there. Like for instance, the underarm. Most of the times we tend to use the French seam because it is not too bulky, and then for the hand, for the sleeve, we normally want just a light, something light, isn't it? So we're now going to look at the types of seams. So seams are generally grouped into two groups. The first group, we have conspicuous seams. Conspicuous means that you can see the seams on the right side of the garment. And then in conspicuous seams, you cannot see the seams on the right side of the garment. The inconspicuous, it is hidden, it is made in the wrong side of the garment, and then in the conspicuous you can see it on the right side of the garment. So examples of the conspicuous seams include double stitch seam, the overlaid seam. Then we're going to also see more of these examples as we continue. And then the inconspicuous seams, we have the French seam, the plain seam, and the open seam. So we are now going to look at this, the inconspicuous seams. We are now going to look at the inconspicuous seams, whereby inconspicuous seams, we say they are only seen on the wrong side of the garment. They include the French seam, the plain seam, and the open seam. So as we talked earlier, the French seam is normally used on fine and lightweight fabrics because it's a bit bulky, and then it's normally used mainly for fabrics that are fraying. So somebody else to take us through the plain seam and the open seam. Somebody else to take us through the plain seam and the open seam, and then I will explain further about the seams.
French seam, it's used on fine and medium weight fabrics, only suitable on fraying fabrics as it encloses raw edges, commonly worked on underarm. Plain seams used on woven and knitted fabrics and on straight or curved areas. Raw edges are overlocked together. Open seams is constructed like a plain seam. The difference is that the seam is pressed open and the raw edges are overlocked differently.
Thank you very much, Betty. So, just like she has read for us, the plain seam is whereby you take two pieces of fabric and then you make a row of stitches, and then after making the row of stitches, you make sure you overlock the row edges together. And then the difference between the plain seam and the open seam is that the open seam, you overlock the raw edges separately, and the plain seam, you overlock the raw edges together. So I want us to see some of the pictures of the types of seams that we have talked about. We have the French seam, the open seam, the plain seam, and the piped seam. So a piped seam, I could explain this, is a variation of like the open and the plain seam, because we make them almost the same, apart from the fact that when you're making a piped seam, you put just a small fabric, you enclose just a small fabric in between the raw edges, and then you leave, as you stitch, you leave a small part of the fabric on the right side of the garment, so it can bring out a decorative effect. So let's continue to discuss the next part, which is the ways of knitting a seam. So ways of knitting a seam. These are basically the major ways of knitting the raw edges of a seam. We can do overlocking, over sewing, we can do binding, loop stitching, and also use of pinking shears. So let's continue with our next subtopic, which is conspicuous seams. Somebody else take us through? Somebody else who has not talked to take us through?
For the conspicuous seams, we have double stitched seam or machine fill, seam with an extra row of stitching marking, a double row of stitching on the right side. Then we have overlaid seam. It is suitable for joining yokes to skirts, nightgowns, shirts, but not suitable on heavy garments. And the last one, we have flat machine filled seam. Has only one row of stitches on the right side.
Yes, thank you very much, Emma. So let me expound more on what Emma has read. Double stitch seam, mostly if you have looked at jeans, this is the type of stitch that is used on jeans. I believe it's mainly used so that you can reinforce the stitches. So when you, on the right side of the garment, you normally see 2 rows of stitches on the right side of the garment. So, and then the overlaid seam is whereby you have 2 pieces of fabric. There is one that is meant to lie flat, and then there is one that you place on top. You fold and then you place on top, and then you make a row of stitches. You stitch closely towards the edge. And then this seam is normally used on lightweight fabrics, not heavyweight fabrics, because it will be a bit bulky. And then for the machine filled seam is almost like the double stitch seam, but the difference is it has only 1 row of stitch. So I want us to see some of the images that can help you understand more about these stitches. I believe you all can see all the pictures here. Can you all see? Can you all see the double stitch seam, the machine fill, and then the overlaid?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can see.
Very, very good, very nice. So from what we have discussed, can somebody just give me qualities of a well-made seam? So what do we need our seam? What are the qualities of a good seam? Somebody who has not talked, please. Somebody say something.
Maybe a trial.
Yes.
The stitches should be even.
Thank you very much. That is very, very good. Stitches should be even. So from Emma's, let me now give you mine. What I wanted us to look at. Qualities of a well-made seam, we have they need to be strongly stitched so that they can last long, and then they need to be accurately stitched to maintain a good line so that the drape and the shape are retained. We also need to make them neatly so that they can enhance their appearance. Like the double stitch seam, you need to make them look neat so they can be appealing to the eye. And then they need to be matched where they cross or meet each other, and then well pressed and flat. And then the seams should be of appropriate width, equal in all parts of the garment. When making the seams, you need to make sure that they need to be of equal width. So as we come to the end of our class, I want to leave you with an assignment whereby I want you to go to the workshop and make a friend seam. And after you've made your friend seam, I need you to take a picture and send it to my email address. I have provided it there, so you can write it down, and then I will also send it to the class rep and the group that you have. So thank you very much. That is the end of my classroom. Let's meet next week, same time, same place. Good night.
You too.
Bye. Goodbye.